Barry Whyte founded a company called Vero. It operates pop-up virtual reality cinema events, and currently he's a contributor to Forbes Tech. He said virtual reality is blurring the lines between movies and video games.
So virtual reality cinemas are out-of-home centers where you can go and have a VR experience with your friends, your partner. You can go and take VR, a very insular technology, and turn it into a social experience that you can engage in with others. You can use virtual reality for a number of different applications. VR gaming is really, really big right now, and we've seen lots of VR arcades crop up around the world. I think there's something like 2,000 in China. Virtual reality film is a much newer genre. Unlike gaming, which is quite interactive, virtual reality film is much more passive. So it's all about sitting back and engaging in an experience, watching a narrative that the director has laid out for you, a bit like watching a regular movie.
So when it comes to VR theaters, how will it change the movie-making process, producing content? Will it spawn an entirely new industry or line of work for VR theaters?
So virtual reality content has to be produced specifically for VR. Unlike 3D cinema, for example, which is just a post-production process on a regular film, movies have to be created specifically for virtual reality. Generally speaking, they're produced using 360 cameras. That's a spherical camera that can capture footage from every single angle. And those cameras also perceive depth. So you have a 3D experience as default. That method of making movies is completely different to the method of making a normal film. So filmmakers are really starting to experiment with the medium and just learn the rules of how you create a VR film, kind of similar to Hollywood in the 1930s.
So is it expensive to create? And what about all the VR headsets moviegoers will have to use? Will that translate into a more expensive movie-going experience?
If you go to a VR cinema, they'll typically have all the equipment there for you to use. Indeed, one of the reasons we've seen such big growth in out-of-home VR centers, such as VR arcades and VR cinemas, is the fact that they have best-in-class equipment. Having VR equipment at home is expensive, of course, and the technology also evolves quite rapidly. So you might be a little bit reluctant to make that investment yourself. One of the great things about an out-of-home center is it will always be best in class, and the equipment you use will be the most suitable VR equipment for whatever experience you're about to engage in.
So where does this technology stand? This is still pretty new. There aren't a lot of VR theaters out there. What do you project, and what do you hope to see in the future?
So I think what we're going to see in the future is blurring of lines between filmed experiences and computer-generated experiences. Right now, a computer game looks very different visually to a film, and that's very true in VR, just as it is, on regular TV screens. But we're starting to see a blurring of those lines. Films are going to start to look a bit more like games, and we're going to start, particularly in the VR space, where 3D objects are really important for creating the experience, we're going to start seeing 3D VR films that look very realistic, but actually they are completely fake. And that gives storytellers some really, really interesting creative possibilities.